Nico was told to get out of town. What does it mean for college football and the landscape of, well, the SEC and more? We'll discuss that. Plus, Rory, exercise some demons at Augusta. Hope you'll join us here on OutKick. While you're here, like, comment, and subscribe at the OutKick YouTube channel. Well, a lot happened over the weekend. Spring practices and the spring football game. It actually became interesting again. Yeah. We haven't seen that in a while yet. We see Tennessee tell its star quarterback, no, we're not going to pay you more, based on demands from either him or his father or his agent.
Let's just say his camp.
His crew.
His entire crew, and he's included in it.
And the ripple effects of the decision made by Danny White, the athletic director, Josh Heupel, the head coach, it's permeated throughout all of college football. And it's not the first time we've seen this happen from a decision for NIL for Tennessee. But not surprised, last time you and I spoke on this on the show, he wasn't around. You know, he no-showed for practice on Friday. And he was coming off of, 2 days? Back-to-back days where they didn't practice. They had a day off on Thursday, and they were preparing for the orange and white game, which he, of course, wasn't a part of. The decision had been made. He's out. Go find other places to play quarterback. That's what he's trying to currently do.
And I said on Friday, Hutton, that good riddance, GTFO, all those things, that's what Tennessee should have done. They did it. And we knew on Friday, we said, both of us, it's going to be very hard to come back from this. Yeah. Right? It's going to be hard to come back and be the leader of that locker room.
It didn't feel like a holdout. It felt like a
didn't. Chino showed he ghosted everybody.
Yeah.
Coaches, teammates, everyone who reached out. I heard that they had to do a wellness check at his apartment because he wasn't responding to anyone. He wasn't there. I mean, it was over at that point on Friday when he decided not to go to practice.
Last Thursday night, Nico was at an event with teammates.
Thursday night, he was at a cookout, a dinner at Joey Halsley, his quarterback coach, offensive coordinator's house. Joey Halsley's wife made tacos for everyone. The other Tennessee quarterbacks talked about it. Talked about how delicious the tacos were. I think probably hard and soft shell.
Probably.
I think Mrs. Halsley makes a mean taco, and I think she prefers both the options of hard and soft shell tacos.
I'm in on that.
So he had that delicious dinner, and all the other quarterbacks said it was pretty much business as usual Thursday night, and then Friday morning he's not at practice. Yep. No one knows where he is, didn't tell anyone, and he bolted, and he's gone, and now he's in the transfer portal.
Listening to his family dynamic is what it sounds like, where he's told not to go to practice on Friday and more or less get back home. And the ripple effect here is really no different, Chad, to me, than what we've been accustomed to from Tennessee volunteer football. Back in July of 2021, Chad and I were doing a show here on OutKick. And that's whenever name, image, likeness went into full effect. Tennessee was at the forefront of this. They jumped right in. They dove headfirst into name, image, likeness and paying players. Others took a step back, but Tennessee leaned into the collective, Inspire Sports. Others followed suit, but Tennessee was one of the first. And to do it at a full throttle, jet fuel level. That led to plenty of players, plenty of attention, and plenty of notoriety across college football, because this was the new age. This was where we were headed, and they figured it out. They had the foresight to know it was going to be wide open, while others, maybe they didn't hit the brakes, but they didn't put pedal to the metal. They're a product of their own doing in many ways, as we see things play out over the weekend, because, Jonathan Skrmetti, Tennessee Attorney General, was suing the NCAA. Why? It happens to be because of Nico Iamaleava. Did I get that right?
Who cares? Don't have to say it anymore. We're good now.
Iamaleava.
Just say Nico. And also,
Iamaleava. Everyone's got to say it now.
Yeah, the next time we're going to announce is when he goes somewhere else. But right now, just whatever you want to say.
Okay. I say Skrmetti's name because he legally challenged the NCAA on behalf of the Tennessee Volunteers, and specifically on behalf of Nico, because they were going back to Nico's recruitment and the $2 million, which has been thrown out there quite a bit, and pay for play and whether or not the offer came in and what the settlement and how it was reached allows athletes to negotiate freely and negotiate their deals freely. This is what was going on. And I'll say this too. The decision to just tell him to be gone, GTFO, that also has ripple effects. That also has waves across college football. Because while we don't get to this result without other coaches also not showing interest in paying top dollar, which I know Chad will get into in a moment, that led to Tennessee not paying top dollar for a quarterback that, based on what they have roster-wise, they need to reach their expectations of where they felt they could go this upcoming season. But with a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, and with a dynamic and leadership aspect to his brand that I'm not sure he knows everything that's going on, the duck on the water, but chaos underneath the surface. But one that was representing him and his last name, and now that's tarnished across the state of Tennessee and with Tennessee Vols athletics because, the Vols are getting all of the positive attention here, but there really is no winner. I don't feel like there's a winner in this because of the fact that Tennessee's also looking for a quarterback now in the transfer portal. And here we are waiting on Nico to find a landing spot, and the next landing spot will be in Knoxville for a quarterback to be named at a certain time. I do point out, though, that Tennessee yet again is, while they're not trying to lead the charge in this direction, they chose to make a decision that other programs can now follow, and it's different than what we saw at UNLV. This is the demands behind the scenes made by agents and parents that have to be ongoing across college athletics right now. Because Tennessee was hearing about this, if not on a daily basis, weekly, monthly basis, going back to December when the winter portal was open. And now that we have the spring portal about to be open on Wednesday, all hell broke loose. And the same act was being followed. And it led to one side overplaying significantly their hand in what they thought they could get by approaching programs like Oregon or Notre Dame or UCLA or USC. They thought they would get a bite. And while A to Z Sports, I know, reported that Texas Tech was interested but didn't act on anything, fact of the matter is no one thought he was worth what they were trying to get. And Tennessee didn't pony up at the last minute because they felt the pressure to do so. No, they actually said, you're locked in on a contract, and we're moving forward with or without you. And ultimately, he was told to no-show, and here we are. Not going to show again.
Yeah, let's start here. So, Knoxville, Tennessee is the capital of the NIL world. That's the first and foremost thing. Every single thing that's happened started because of something at Tennessee where Spire Sports and the university have been on the cutting edge of everything, right and wrong, okay? Because when they signed Nico out of high school for $2 to $2.5 million, whatever the exact number is, don't know, but somewhere in that range per year, that was the report and the number that everyone was throwing out saying, can you believe that someone is paying a quarterback out of high school over $2 million a year to be the quarterback? And at the time, it was, that's just the market, and Tennessee has kind of set the market for one of the top quarterbacks in the country to be locked in as your starting quarterback at your school, and that's the way it is right now. Tennessee was on the forefront of that. They signed him. It was a mistake, it turns out, in the end. Now they got the one good year. They go to a playoff, so I guess you could argue whether it was a mistake or not, but they paid Nico Iamaleava over $2 million to sit the bench for a year, to learn under Joe Milton. They paid him that much money to go and lead the team to a playoff. Stats weren't terrific, but he did it. They won those games. They got to the first ever 12-team playoff. Reports are now that he was asking for a raise to play in the playoff game against Ohio State. Then he's asking for a raise again right after the season. Doesn't go in the portal, though. Sticks with it. Goes through spring practice. Comes out of spring practice, continuing to go to other schools, try to negotiate a new deal, and decides he's fed up once the news leaked.
Looking for leverage.
Looking for leverage, looking for more money.
One thing. when Chad and I reference he's asking or he's looking for leverage, we're talking about his team.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, while they were asking for all this during the college football playoff, he still went and played hard without getting what he wanted.
Yeah.
So, and he's still participating in spring practice without getting what he wanted up until he was told not to. I don't know truly what he was all about and what he's not. But ultimately, he's part of this. He's not blameless, but he's not the sole contributor to the chaos that ensued.
Yeah, and Clay brought up a good point about this when I think he posted on X. This shows a startling lack of confidence in his NFL career by his dad and his handlers, that they're just trying to maximize short-term profit and not seeing the big picture at all, because an extra $2 million for this 1 year is a pinprick on what he'd make as a first-round quarterback in the NFL. So if you just stay at Tennessee, a system a coach who you have a good relationship with, we thought, that has developed you, that you have a good understanding, and you ball out for one more year, you could be a first-round pick and make millions more. But to try to argue over $2 million right now is very short-sighted. So that brings me to the dad in all this.
Yes.
Big Nick, Nico's dad, Coach Nick, whatever you want to call him, and his handler or agent, Cordell Landers, a junior college coach out in California. These guys aren't smart. I'm going to say what no one else is saying. I'll say this as a dad, too. Big Nick, Coach Nick, whatever you want to call him, he's being a terrible father, and he's setting a terrible example for his son right now. If all reports are true, and this decision was made solely by him, let's take out the money part of this, okay? Let's take out the fact that Tennessee invested millions in his son, and they have profited big time from this relationship. And as far as I know, Tennessee's done everything in their power to develop him, to get him ready to be a really good quarterback, and they have incentivized him big time to be a quarterback on that team. If you advise your son after all of that, hey, kid, get in a car, go to the airport, and leave without saying a word to anyone, in the cloak of darkness, with your hoodie up over, where you're disguising yourself at the airport, and get back to California to me right now. That is shitty advice from a father. That is not teaching your son anything. Because a real father would tell his son, after all of that, we need to go have a conversation with Coach Heupel. We owe him that. Out of respect, we need to go talk to him. Things have been frayed. Things have gotten bad. It's probably past the point of no return after this report and everything else. But we owe it to him to go have a conversation. And you owe it to him to at least go tell him face to face, Coach, I appreciate everything you've done, but I'm going in a different direction. And this is what's best for my family, or whatever. At least do that. But for a dad to tell his kid, get on a plane, come back here, and we'll work it out. It was a bad move. It's a bad decision. He is being crushed by everyone in media and most college football fans. And let me tell you, it is difficult to get all of college football media on the side of the Tennessee Volunteers football team. Knowing Vol Twitter and what they've been responsible for and what they've done in the past, that's a difficult task. Somehow Tennessee's decision to tell them to GTFO has united college football on Tennessee's side in this matter. And that's a difficult thing to do. Hutton, I hate the parental aspect of this. Because now if I'm an NFL executive, if I'm a GM, and I'm even considering drafting Nico in the next level, my only questions now are revolving around the father's influence and how much of a child are you exactly? Does daddy cut up steak for you also? Does he mash up peas for you and feed it to you with a spoon? I'm asking him these questions to his face if I'm a general manager. Can you go to the bathroom without your dad also? What else is your dad going to tell you to do if you're in the NFL? And Hutton, if his answer, if an NFL exec asked him, hey, how would you define this date? What was the April 10th or whatever the day was exactly? April 10th, 2025. Explain that to us and your understanding of everything that happened. If your response is not simply, you know what, things got bad in the negotiation. It was the wild, wild west in college sports at the time. And things went sideways after that report. And in hindsight, I should have handled it better. I should have had the conversation with my coach. There are 1,000 different things I would have done. But in the end, we thought it was best to move on and go somewhere else. That's what we did. I wish I would have handled the exit better. If your response is anything other than that, you can't win here.
Well, so
there's really no winning other than admitting it was a mistake.
Man, there are so many avenues here. And I love what you said. I think, unfortunately, a lot of players right now, a lot of the kids or adults, whatever you want to say, right now are more in tune with the way Nico acts than not. Caleb Williams comes to mind for me. How much did we talk about his dad in college? A lot. A lot. And that's just scratch. I mean, everyone's talking. You can't say Shedeur without thinking about Dion.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's a good point.
It happens more often than not now, especially with the negotiations behind the scenes, name, image, likeness, pay for play. Let's just call it that, and the money grab that's going on. And I want of everything that's happened over the week. Have we seen an apology to Pete Nakos?
Hell no.
I mean, to go straight at him. I mean, think about it, just the initial reaction of, you know, how fake news and everyone piling on. Nakos is also in line for the apology tour as well, starting with Father Nick.
Yeah, Coach Nick.
Now let me also say,
who called him a bitch.
That makes me think that a lot of this is agent driven, and I want to put agent in lowercase caps here. You know, it's not, you're not in capital, all caps. No, because I don't know the parameters here of what this guy's in charge of financially and for the I don't know.
We're going to go out on a limb, Button, and say most of these guys did not attend law school. The way most agents do.
I don't know how this process works. I just know the family's heavily involved. And in listening to our buddy Austin Price from VolQuest or Austin Stanley from A to Z Sports covering this, I get the sense that the agent was trying to save some face with what didn't happen in negotiations and flipped it. We wouldn't be surprised if he's the one who leaked the information, acted like it was on the university. The dad goes at the report, and here we are. However, we're here because of the trust factor and the family dynamic and the money grab, right? Like, so Chad, you say that, you know, made a mistake to bring Nico in. I don't look at it as a mistake because at $2 million at the time, it's a shock and awe evaluation. Right now, look what Duke's paying.
Yeah.
You know, I don't look at it as a mistake because Tennessee's competitive and they're climbing the ladder. They're in the college football playoff with the quarterback that they pay. I mean, expectations were going up, not down. I didn't see anything plateauing. Now they're behind the 8 ball a bit because they're in the market for a quarterback again. But I don't view it as a mistake. I think it's if anything, they made the right call. It just happens to be at the wrong time, and it's the perfect storm of having no guardrails here, of it being the state of Tennessee that's advocating for the ability for the player to freely negotiate for name, image, likeness whenever he chooses. Okay. But it's also the NCAA taking a step back. And the fact that the spring portal's open the week after all of the spring practices. I mean, the timing is what it is because of the calendar.
Yeah.
And it leads us to this moment. And my line of thinking also is he's probably entering the portal and going through the motions of spring practice. But when the report gets out, chaos ensues. And it leads him to Nico looking really bad based on the report that gets out there, and he's the villain in all this.
Well, he's definitely a villain now. There's a lot of people rooting against him, and maybe he'll use that as fuel and go somewhere and have a really good year and go be a pro quarterback. I don't know. Let me bring up what you're saying, though, on this, okay? Because there are a ton of people who – and yes, they need guardrails. Yes, they need better leadership in college football. Yes, they need a set of rules for NIL. All of those things.
And the cap's going to help with this.
Are certainly true, right? I just don't want to take that and then excuse the actions of Nico's camp and all of this for this reason.
But that's we've only seen this come to the surface.
I know.
I know.
This but let me finish what I'm getting at here. Okay, if you go and loot when times are crazy and there's protests going on or whatever, and you come back and you're like, man, it was nuts. There were no rules out there on the street, and I just went and grabbed a bunch of stuff from a store and ran out with it. Like, it doesn't excuse because there's not parameters set up. It doesn't excuse someone from being a decent human being, right? You need to still operate with a level of respect especially when someone's paying you over $2 million a year. And over $2 million of that 1 year to sit on the bench. Like, there's still, you can't just throw everything away and be like, man, there are no rules, so I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Well, there are rules.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave the program. I'm going to try to get more money. I'm going to leverage the team and the fan base at the worst possible time. There are still repercussions for it. It may pay off and you get a little bit more money in the short term, but there needs to be actual human repercussions for behaving in that way. Well, I don't want to excuse that part of it either.
I'm not trying to excuse it, but with guardrails, it does prevent it. And I think with the cap coming, with the revenue share, that will help this because then you're capped at a number.
But I don't think it's going to be a cap.
And you can point to that. Well,
I mean, they're all going to have a certain amount of money, but it's still not going to stop them from going over that to entice people to stay or all that. So there's still going to be crazy things going on.
The other crazy part about this is Tennessee's about to turn around and bring in another quarterback that could be doing the same thing behind the scenes.
No doubt about it.
But the only difference is he's not asking for a $2.5 million raise based on whatever he was getting or whatever contract he's under. That's what's happening. And that's just the world. By the way, I'm not faulting Tennessee for that. This is the landscape we're in because this is now college football. But it's the demands from those representing players without any – I just don't know how do you go about choosing those people? How do you interact with them as a university? What qualifies these – you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like it's a money grab and it's at the benefit of the player. It's also at the detriment of the player because it's not like Nico's got a bank account for him with just $2.5 million in it. It's definitely not just him making profit off this.
And I'll say also, like, you know, you can't have it always and then change and be hypocritical about things. I think the way Nico handled this, especially going back to going into the playoff game with the report that he was asking for more money just to compete in the playoff game, and then he's been unhappy since and all that. I think they badly misplayed their hand here, and I think they did not play it appropriately. And I'm not talking just about Nico,
right.
Who all reports are is a nice enough kid. Right? I don't want to crucify him, but he's getting very bad advice from his camp, especially his father, by all accounts. They misplayed their hand. It was a bad situation, and they caused that bad situation. Okay? Not excusing it, any of that. Ended the way it did with him leaving Tennessee high and dry after spring practice. But Hutton, you're right. Let's just say hypothetically the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech or NC State or wherever decides they're going to take more money to go to Tennessee right now. They're doing the same exact thing to their team. They've completed spring practice, right, with their team. They are the starting quarterback for their school, and they are going to make a business decision to likely take more money and go be the starting quarterback at Tennessee. That's what Tennessee's got to do to bring in depth and someone who can compete to be the starter. I'm not going to fault Tennessee for doing that, but I also don't want to sit here and act like I wouldn't have at least a little bit of reservations about someone that would do that to their current team that they've been with since last season and have gone through spring practice and do all those things. Hutton, the same reservations I had about Nico after he no-showed practice, about coming back and being a leader. I can't sit here on the flip side and say whoever Tennessee pays to come play for them, especially at a similar level, if that's what ends up happening, that's kind of a red flag on that player too.
It's a quick fix, but that's where we are. You know, like, Nico's going to get paid money big time if he stays. You know, it's just the way that all this went about. And the fact that, nothing's good enough, it doesn't feel like, for specifically him, his father, or his representation. And I just don't get that part of it.
No, and I would be shocked if he gets $4 million from anyone.
No, there's no reason to pay him that.
I will be a little bit surprised if he gets 2.5.
No, he's not going to get 4 because he's already shopped that around. Again, when I'm saying is and no one took the bait. So there's no Tennessee would be negotiating against themselves, really.
Yeah, let's roll into the impact on the rest of college football right now. Good segue to do that. Mario Cristobal at Miami, he's got some thoughts when asked about spring game holdouts, in-season holdouts. Here's what the Hurricanes head coach had to say about it.
We're not going to do that at Miami. And I say that without any hesitation. If anyone's thinking that, and they could be the best player in the world, if they want to play holdout, they might as well play get out. don't want to do that. We don't want Miami to become that. Too many guys have sweated, bled, have laid it on the line on that field to ever become that kind of a program.
And that's exactly what Josh Heupel said after the fact. Saturday, he said, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys. I'm sure you're going to have questions about it. But no one person is bigger than the program here at Tennessee, and that goes for everywhere. And Heupel even said, I'm not bigger than the program. There have been great coaches and players before me. There are going to be great coaches and players after me. So we're going to go to war with the guys who want to be here, the guys who want to give their all for Tennessee, and let's go out and have fun and compete. I thought he handled it well, said exactly what needed to be said, didn't bury the kid or Nico or anyone, thanked him for his time there, said he loved his energy every day at practice and in games, but it was time to move forward. So in moving forward, Mario Cristobal said that. Got to love that level of respect he has for himself and his program and his players that actively want to be there. You love seeing that from a coach. Is every coach in college football going to react the same way? Is everyone going to stand firm and say, no, you're not worth $4 million a year, and we're not going to budge on it? The answer to me is emphatically no. Someone's going to cave. Someone's going to pay good money for Nico to come be quarterback because they feel like he's their best shot at getting to their goals as a team. And I can't ultimately fault that team for doing that. But I do believe, Hutton, the best possible outcome for college football is for the power schools out there to just say, you seem like too much of a headache, and we're not going to pay you what Tennessee was paying you. Maybe we'll consider you coming here for $250,000 or $500,000. But you're not going to make that much money, and because of that, you can go look somewhere else. If he fell to a Group of 5 program like Tulane, that Pete Nakos is now reporting as one of his 3 finalists, I think that would be a good thing to course correct a bit with the quarterback market when these things happen. Because the last thing you want to do is give the wrong guy this much money.
Well, the fact, though, is Duke is paying, was it Murphy?
Darian Mensah. Yeah, $4 million.
Think about that. I mean, there are universities or programs that will pay. I think it's just the way things are represented behind the scenes that lead to this. I don't think it's like, hey, we're putting our foot down and no, you're not going to make this money. Nico has nowhere to go because teams are already paying their quarterbacks. How much is Tennessee paying their backups right now? Do we know?
I don't know specifically, but they're making something.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I would say George McIntyre is making quite a bit more than Jake Merklinger, and McIntyre is currently the 3rd string.
Okay.
And he's a true freshman.
I say that because, you've got money allocated across the board, and no one really knows what players are getting paid. We only know the Nico number because of the notoriety it received. But the notoriety it received is because of the way they openly negotiate these things. So, I mean, I think this is, Tennessee put up with this for a while. And they, the demands back in December were more than just bowl, more than college football playoff games. It was, hey, let's beef up the offensive line. You need to spend some money on this position, that position. Bring this guy in. Which,
by the way, is pretty hilarious when you think that Tennessee's offensive line was good enough to produce the leading rusher in the conference and one of the top running backs in America. They were pretty good at blocking. Like, that was not a bad offensive line. And I don't know where his dad thinks, he's not going to be in a bubble. You play for an SEC team, you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
The best offensive lines in America. Georgia produces great offensive linemen to the next level. Alabama. Those offensive lines are giving up big hits on their quarterback. Like, you cannot ultimately protect your quarterback at all times. That was a ridiculous request from
well, the request, though, was granted by and large.
Well, but I don't know if it was granted because they wanted better protection for Nico or because they graduated so many offensive linemen and they needed guys to come in and play right away.
I'm saying like specific players, too.
Yeah.
That were addressed.
David Sanders is a good example. He came back for a renegotiation late in the game because he went on a visit to Ohio State. They offered him more money. And he came back to Tennessee, and Tennessee was willing to fork over more money for a freshman offensive tackle to come in and start right away. And I guarantee you, in part because Nico wanted it.
That had to be part, no doubt. But also because he's a really good player.
Of course.
And
he'll be a good blocker for whoever's the quarterback, not just Nico.
But that's the name of the game. That's how the business of football is working right now. But things got messy whenever the business of football turned into we're going to get more because, we deserve more because we have the leverage. And Tennessee called their bluff. But so did college football, by and large. Like the big-time programs that they were reaching out to. Notre Dame, Oregon.
Dan Lanning
UCLA,
ratted
USC.
him out to Josh Heupel. So he's not going to pay for him.
And we also know this. Had Nico been great, not just good, but great, coming off a great season, like going to the college football semis, he's probably paid right now.
Yeah, I think here's like let me
again. That's the overplay.
Yeah, no doubt. Also, let me say this on Tennessee's front: you do not want to you don't want to necessarily be Florida getting sued by Jaden Rashada for overpromising and then not paying up on something. You never want to be known as that program. On the flip side, you don't want to be known as the program who always pays top dollar and outbids everyone. And you end up attracting the guys who are in it solely for the money. Example, Jimbo Fisher and A&M. They brought in the greatest recruiting class in the history of the sport, and it did nothing for them. It got Jimbo Fisher fired. Why? Because they brought in a lot of guys, not all of them, but a lot of the guys who were the wrong types of players that just wanted to go to top dollar and didn't consider program development, everything else that goes along with it. Money should absolutely be a factor if you're a top player. It should be one of your factors. Cannot be the only one. And A&M brought in too many guys like that. And I think if they publicly meet the demands of Nico after Thursday night and pay him $4 million, they suddenly become the program that everyone that's a recruit is going to have dollar signs over their head and a big flash bulb going off. Go to Tennessee, go on a visit, see how much money you can milk them for. And I don't think that always brings in the best type player. Here's the best situation to pay that quarterback or that player. Keep in mind, Nico got paid over $2 million to sit the bench, okay? You bring in a guy who's maybe under-recruited that over-delivers, becomes your starter, and becomes an all-conference performer. And then after they become an all-conference performer, after not making much money, let's say their first 2 years on campus, they're getting offered $4 million by Duke or by Miami or whoever to transfer. You pony up and pay that dude. You haven't invested that much money in him already because he was a 3-star recruit, let's say. You know, he didn't have a ton of great offers. But he developed into a stud and a leader on your team. I'm fine with schools saying, you know what? If you're worth $4 million to Miami or Duke, and we got it, even though it's going to stress our salary cap currently with the rest of the roster, you're worth it. We'll pay you $4 million. Toppin at Texas Tech, a great example. Developed at Tech, became a great player. Everyone in America wanted him. He's getting paid over $4 million to come back and stay at Tech. Totally fine with that. When you pay your dudes that have over-delivered that way, that Nico situation's not that. I get that everyone sees the 2.5 and says, well, that's $1.5 million less than some guys are getting. That's this year. This was a 3 to 4 year commitment by Tennessee that valued over $8 million total that they were in the middle of with that contract. Don't bend on that. Tennessee made the right call.
Well, and I think much like the 2.5, whenever he's recruited, we'll look back on the $4 million and think, remember when we thought $4 million was a lot? You know, that's where we're headed.
Unless something gets done quick with the house settlement and everything else.
Just not as fast because Tennessee didn't pay. That's on you.
It could slow it down a bit.
We're already at that marker based on what some of the other programs are paying. And let's go back to December and the report from Josh Pate on the Josh Pate Show, which he put on his YouTube channel last night, where he says that, hey, this was going on in the playoffs with this kid included, but not just this kid. He's talking about Nico. Trying to get more money from Tennessee and other playoff teams before the playoffs. They were trying to leverage playoff participation. And the explainer was, our client is being paid X, and now a 13th game, and he goes on to say he should make more money. This is the kind of BS that's happening behind the scenes right now. Again, I think this is seeing how the sausage is made. It's not just one specific instance, but what every program competing at the very top levels are dealing with on a weekly, monthly, and seasonal basis. You know, seasonal meaning winter, spring, summer, fall. And a good quarterback thought he was great. His representation did, and they overplayed their hand. They didn't have anyone bite. But that's also because they feel comfortable with the quarterback that they have and that they're probably paying top dollar to.
Yeah, Josh Pate's not a reporter. I saw his video. It was really good about all this. I don't expect him to report or break news on Nico holding out for a playoff game or other players. But to just drop that in there the way he's talking about, I think we've gotten too casual in college football media for people who are reporters to not report stuff like this. If this was common knowledge, amongst media members. I want to know this as a fan of the sport.
Well, he's being very broad there, too. I
want to know the players. Yeah.
And I
but
said
he's
this with
specifically
Trey.
saying, Nico, like, don't you want to know the players who are coming to the table and being like, I want more money before I play in this playoff game?
But it's unusual because he played well.
He played hard.
Played hard.
Yeah.
I mean, but he didn't play like a quarterback that was just going through the motions.
I agree.
And
he won respect from me. I said after that game because he was fighting for extra yards.
Yeah.
He played tough in that game.
That's the weird part. Like being at the team function, having the tacos, hard shell and soft shell.
Both.
The night before leaving.
Full quesadilla bar, too, I heard. Tough to walk away from that.
Queso fountain, maybe?
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine a queso fountain?
A queso fountain instead of the chocolate fountain?
Not the chocolate fountain, a queso fountain? Let's just imagine there was a queso fountain at this dinner the night before, and he walked away from all that.
He enjoyed that. That was part of his NIL
Thank you, Mrs. Halsley,
contract.
for the queso fountain.
It sounds like he didn't even contact some of his teammates about what was going on here. Just walked.
I don't think he contacted a single player on the team.
Think about how difficult that would be at 20 years old with your friends, guys that, you're a leader of the team. You're at the quarterback, wide receiver. You're not even going to text them and let them know what's up. That's the bizarre is how things played out with him specifically. Even though I need more money because it's the 13th game, and I need more money because I'm worth it because we're going to leverage this because the spring portal's coming up. That's the weird part to me, Chad. Is like he just got a phone call from representation that said, "Get home." That's how I viewed it.
Well, if I would have known,
and that's very unusual compared to I think how other players and reps would handle it or are handling it.
Again, I think he has tanked his NFL draft stock right now. Now he could go somewhere and play for Bill Belichick in a pro-style offense and look great, and then he could help it again.
And that's the crystal ball, by the way.
But right now, that is the crystal balls to North Carolina according to On3 Sports. But for right now, he's tanked his draft stock. In the moment, what we're looking at with this situation, he's going to be asked a ton of questions about it. And I don't think he can really give a ton of good answers other than I screwed up, that we mishandled it, because it's kind of like the draft day sequence of Kevin Costner where no one goes to the player's birthday party. There's no players at it.
Yeah.
Like you're not talking to a single receiver
or
offensive lineman and like, hey, man, love playing with you. Just ghost everyone and leave is an awful look. Let me get back to the reporting angle on this real quick.
Yeah.
I would love for them to report this stuff. Like just personally,
that's what I said to Trey
as a college football fan,
Friday.
like I understand that you have relationships and you're getting info from agents. Like, hey, don't say this, but we're talking. But at some point, you've got to report stuff.
Well, not even so. Again, it was almost. And Trey, I'm sure, has heard these things, not just from him, but from other reporters in Knoxville, wherever. And I'm thinking, like, I haven't heard it to this level. I knew Nico was big on NIL. We knew that through his high school recruitment. But the demands, like that's where it's like, okay, if this has been going on, where's all this been? And you better believe it's not just with Nico specifically, but how many other outlets are just holding on to information because they don't want to make a big deal about the player leaving.
Correct.
If they don't want to be blamed for it by the fan base.
Did half of the teams have players request more money to play in the playoff? Did all 12 have players request? These are things I'd like to know. How common is this? Well, if it's just common, then you wouldn't have as big of a reaction to it. Yeah. But as a Tennessee fan, I would have had a big response to Nico demanding more money to play in the playoff if I had known that at the time. And I know they don't report it because they know that's going to be the reaction, and they don't want to bury their source. But at some point, I laugh at this. Well, now that he's done it, we'll go ahead and report everything that he's done.
And how bad things are. And
the dad was terrible, and he didn't show up at autograph signings. He wouldn't take pictures of people, and they had problems with this. And I'm like, goodness gracious.
But by and large,
all the writing I saw about this kid was he was, Polynesian Jesus.
Yeah,
for the most part at Tennessee. And now all of a sudden he was a problem.
And he may be, again, I don't know much about him, but it's not like a lot has been reported on him. And I didn't think his father was like Caleb Williams' father. Because we don't hear from him as much unless Pete Nakos is reporting something, and then all of a sudden it's, all hell breaks loose.
I keep thinking back.
Hours later, he's
laughing
on a plane.
There was that video. I saw someone post this. I'm just now remembering it. But Morgan Wallen had a concert at Neyland Stadium. And remember one of the nights, Peyton Manning walked out in his old football uniform.
Yeah.
Nico was there. and Tony Vitello was there.
Yes.
And, like, that was going on the whole time, and he didn't want to be there. Like, he was outwardly negotiating with Tennessee to leave if they didn't pay him $4 million as he walked out to Neyland Stadium at that point. Just really funny when you look back on it now.
Was he negotiating to leave, or was he asking for more help on the it sounds like the money thing was more about... Or
was he just like, I just want to play ball? You know, he doesn't even know what's going on because his dad and his handler are handling the whole thing. Who knows?
And you're trying not to cause a distraction going into the playoffs.
Right. Look, it sucks for him that he got bad advice and he followed it and he feels like he can't tell his dad and his agent no.
I will.
But at the end of this, Hutton, he's going to be the one that has to answer the questions to NFL GMs.
Well, and
teams when he goes in front of them.
And
it's not them that are going to be in that room. It's not going to be Cordell Landers. It's not going to be Big Nick. It's going to be Little Nick. And he's going to be asked all these questions about playing daddy ball.
I think we're in a world now where, I mean, the parents are more involved now than ever. There was a report out, and I can find this for as the show moves on if you want, about the percentage of what generation is this that we're currently in?
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
Gen Zers. And a number of kids in their first interviews for jobs who expect that their parents would be there with them. That's crazy to think about. Sad in a way. But I think the NFL deals with it more now than
Speaking of Gen Zers, here's Nico.
Probably think. And yeah, here's Nico walking out. But keep this in mind too. The NFL does have guardrails, and that you have a contract where if you want to hold out, okay, but there are parameters in place where you won't get paid. You know, there's a did not report list that you can go on, and you're screwed from the money. I mean, Lamar Jackson's represented by his mom. You know, like there are instances where this has happened before, and I don't want to bury Nico thinking he can't overcome this when it comes to the NFL. But, Chad, here's where he really screwed himself. He's not going to be playing for the best option. Mm-mm. The best option is Tennessee.
The one where he's been in the system for 2.5 years, too.
Where they enhanced the roster based on, if you believe the reports, based on requests made by his reps. So, why not stick in play? I think it's like Chad said, because Daddy didn't want me to.
I mean, what?
Because Pete Nako said I can't.
Yeah.
Here's the class right now. Look at this.
Can he cut his own steak? You know, can he? I mean, I'm asking all these questions
about
him.
Can he chew his own steak?
What can you do without Dad? If your answer is, I do whatever my father tells me to do, then what happens when after the bye week, your shoulder's hurting a little bit, but we tell you can play, and the doctor tells you can play, but Dad says you can't play, and shut you down the rest of the season. Do you do it because you do anything your dad says?
Is this the LeVar Ball syndrome that's going on? You know,
I think too many kids are coddled for sure. But just what are you teaching your child? If they're an adult, he's 20 years old or however old he is, right? He's young. I'm not saying he's fully formed. I don't think the cerebral cortex is fully formed until you're like 25 as a male. So I'm not saying that, but dude, you've been around Josh Heupel and these coaches for a long time. You need to go talk to them. You can go tell your players, your teammates goodbye, or you can text them and call them. You don't leave that way.
I will say this is at least a dynamic, though, that Tennessee was okay with recruiting him. I don't think the recruitment was all that different than what they went through here. It couldn't have been, based on the hands-on aspect of Nick, not Nico.
Gosh, was it Darren Heitner, who we're going to have on the show later this week, who's an NIL attorney, had some really good things to say about it. And I know he was interviewed for a piece, and we're going to have him on to talk also. But
good.
I think the quote from him was something like, you know, Nico's dad and his agent believe they're the smartest men in the room everywhere they go, and they're in the wrong rooms. It's kind of how he described it.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where you need legitimate, viable representation. Legal representation, a sports agent, someone basically who is paid a percentage that it's very pure, it's transactional. They are looking out for your best interest. They understand the game, they understand sports, and they are paid and have experience looking out for the athlete and their best interest. You don't need your dad and some junior college coach leading you in these negotiations that are going on. And that's the biggest fault of Nico and all of us.
And we're at the infancy of where we are in the name, image, likeness. I mean, again, it's a money grab. Chad, I found it. More than a quarter of Gen Zers brought their parents to a job interview.
Oh, my gosh.
Some of them had their parents answer questions for them. This is a recent survey by Resume Templates, a Business Insider report on this. The survey, nearly 1,500 U.S. Zoomers found that 70% had asked their parents for help during the job search. 26% had brought a parent to an interview. 16% had parents who submitted job applications for them. And 1 in 10 had their parents write their resume. This is the landscape that we're in. It means it's not just Nico that needs dad's help to negotiate on a grand scale of college football. I would need help with that too.
I would need.
You just got to have great representation.
I really
and in this
need
case,
to hear
he doesn't.
from like the percentage of Gen Zers that do this to DYB.
No, I need the parents
to defend
DYB.
themselves on this. Both parents and but they're adults that are going out for job interviews doing this too. Parents need to be interviewed also that agree to do it and that raise their kids in a way that this happens.
In addition, the survey found 49% of Gen Zers ask for help with their cover letters. 60% said they asked their parents to find jobs for them to apply to.
I mean, whatever. Like, if you want help with it, like, hey, someone who's done this before,
Mom,
can you help me
meatloaf.
with my? Can you proofread it? Whatever, that's fine. But I mean, this is stepbrothers level stuff.
Yeah.
What's your Columbus Day policy? That's a pretty big holiday for
Boxing
us over
Day.
here.
We actually that goes back to one of our interns who wanted Boxing Day off. Remember this?
I don't remember
wanted
Boxing Day
off.
specifically, but
it was the dude
that's
that unbuttoned his shirt down to the navel.
No, it definitely would have been that intern.
I know
the intern you're talking about. The intern we had to reprimand for showing up shirtless.
Only 17% of kids in the survey reported to not credit their parents at all. We want the 17% quarterbacking our team.
That do not credit their parents?
They don't credit their parents at all for the job interview process.
Oh, well, yeah, good.
17%, man. What? Crazy.
I've got a full psych eval I'm going to do for every incoming transfer or player out of high school that I'm paying money to if I'm a coach.
23% said that.
And the biggest part may be, what involvement do your parents have in your decision-making once you join a college team?
Again, this is Gen Z. 23% of them in this 1,500-person survey said their parents went to the career fair for them.
Oh, no.
This is not fake news. This is straight from Business Insider, Chad. Ridiculous.
I don't think it's going to be the case, but like I always hope when I hear stories like this that the next generation will figure it out.
Well, the next generation's Generation Alpha.
I am the next generation of parent that's bringing up the next generation.
Generation
Alpha.
Alpha.
So it's really on me and all parents that have kids around my age to teach them differently. I know I'm going to be doing that. Please take this pledge with me, parents out there, and do the same for your kids. Don't escort your kid on a job interview. Don't do all the work for them.
It's our generation that's escorting kids on job interviews.
Don't do it.
Think
Just please don't. Take this vow with me. It's a solemn vow. Right now, don't be the parents that enable this type of behavior.
They expect their parents to answer questions for them. Imagine being the employer. You're going to hire that person? Well,
I mean, people are desperate for workers.
Nico's going to get signed somewhere.